Hey friends, welcome back to the Kirkpatrick Podcast. It is your girl Vanessa, and I am so excited to be here today talking to you about just diving a little bit more in depth into levels 3 and 4. So one of the things I noticed with some of the recent podcast episodes, how much you all loved the episodes really cracking the code on levels 3 and 4. And that's really what we want to be diving into more and doing more of. I think that on levels 1 and 2, you all have figured that one out. So let's really focus on kind of where we can go with levels 3 and 4. And so one of the conversations that we were having in the Kirkpatrick community just the other day was about really understanding the data that we have and how we can tell a story from it. And are we telling, the right story? And when I think about, the different metrics that we provide reports on, I think about what we report so often on is activity and not necessarily impact or output or outcome. Well, I shouldn't say output, outcomes. And though it looks so good on paper that we are, training for, 75 hours, every week, and or delivering, 6,000 courses in our library, or we have access, to 6,000 courses in our library. Like, does that data even really matter? And like, what does matter to an employee? And so I want to dive a little bit deeper into how we can communicate as a learning function the value that you all provide, and not just for the business. I think a lot of things that we talk about is around how can we show the business our value so that we don't get cut, so that we, get, justify our budgets and sort of all of those things. But I think there's also another area that we need to talk more about our value, and that is to provide our part in why the organization we are at is a great place to work. So when we think about benefits, and like why, an organization is a great place to work, so often we share about all the learning, the professional development experiences that we have, and, access to all of these like courses and things like that. And I do think personally that learning is one of the most top reasons that someone would want to stay in an organization or join. So the learning function is actually the one area, in my opinion, where there is no real cap as to how much value that you can continue to provide and how many more benefits you can continue to provide. If you think about like salaries have to get capped out, right? I highly doubt that someone's salary is going to continue to go up and up and up, where you're probably making after 20 years, the same as the CEO, right? Like at a certain point, the value of that job role gets capped out at a certain dollar amount. So that's a finite limit. When we think about benefits for an organization, like health and wellness benefits, that's another area that typically, because it costs money and things like that, it gets tapped out, right? And like how many like health and wellness benefits can you really have? Although it's really cool, the wellness benefits that are kind of going out there right now, but side note. And so then it's like, all right, we've got wellness, if we want to offer maybe like childcare or something like that, that's something else that costs money. But there are so many opportunities when it comes to learning that don't have to cost any extra money. And so I think that when you are framing the value and your level 3 and 4 data as like a benefit, or like how it benefits an organization, you really want to think about, how do you help support someone in their learning and in their growth. And I want to caveat this by I do not believe in purchasing like a LinkedIn Learning or like, although I think that they're no longer around, Masterclass at Work, like those sort of like box generic courses. Um, I think that that's lazy personally. Um, I think that I'm going to get a lot of comments on that. I think that it is a way to say that we have a lot of content out there, but it's not very like strategic content. And what I have found is that most people or most organizations that invest in those larger libraries find that they're not seeing as many people utilize those libraries. And it's actually also very hard to then measure the impact of those libraries because, you're not creating the courses, and so it just becomes like a whole big, challenge between like matching behaviors to what you actually want to see. I digress. And so when we think about what opportunities in learning can we create, that is where I feel that learning functions should focus more on community. And when you're thinking about like reporting out your value and like your level like 3 and 4, to entice or engage someone who is looking to join your organization or finding a reason to stay, thinking about the experience and thinking about how you can build community and how you can build opportunity to practice, how you can build opportunity for folks to really perform better on the job. Like no one's joining an organization and with really like this intent of like growing as, like a human outside of like to help you perform, right? It all has to tie back to work. And so if we can tie back your learning experiences, your learning content to those things, I think that is where you'll see more opportunity to really beef up the things that you do. And there are so many simple things as an organization that you can do to benefit or to think about, retention and like learning opportunities, right? Like having brown bags, having lunch and learns, really going all in on some sort of community, whether that is, the way that you use your teams, the way that you use Slack, or if you invest in like Mighty Networks or Circle or one of those like actual social sort of networking platforms. I think you have opportunity there to help someone grow in areas they never thought they could. And I would challenge you to not only audit your work to tie back to what impact did we have to the organization to justify our existence, but then turn that same study, that same report or data, and what's the storytelling there, where that you can then provide it over to HR or recruiting and say, here are all the opportunities that people have to grow in your organization. And I think often we measure our impact based like singly on the programs that we provide, as opposed to just the impact in general that we have as an organization or as a function on the organization. And so I encourage you, especially as we start to head into the end of the year and like what are going to be our goals for 2026. Oh, that's crazy to say. 2026 is going to be, y'all, what a year. I turned 40. It's going to be the book comes out. What a great year 2026 is going to be. Again, I digress, but you all know that's what I do. So yeah, I think I would I would challenge you to take some time. I know that you're probably feeling overwhelmed with the amount of work on your plate as the year winds down that you need to finish up. But I think you have a great opportunity to say, let's just do like a pause and do an audit and our own evaluation of us as a department as a whole, and not just finding specifically like let's measure, how we like did on this program. And I think what you'll find there is if you have um, um, programs that you haven't necessarily evaluated, or that, you've kind of always wondered, like, I know that there's some impact there, but I haven't really been able to find it. This will be that time that you can to gather some of that data and to gather the insights that you'll need and really the testimonials and the stories to prove that these programs are having, impact. So you kind of get a little bit of a twofer without having to sit down and like individually audit every single program. You can, find ways to lump it into one, but I would take the time to really understand what impact that you're having on the organization, what activities really supported folks in transferring from learning to behavior and performance on the job. I would encourage you to think about or to ask and find out, not just the types of activities, but what were the types of like interactions? What was it about that activity that specifically made it more impactful and helpful for you? Were there any tools that that we created that you reference often? Do you know where to go for support, right? When you have a question or, after the training, right? What can we do better, but how we set you up for success in the future? And then you could also find out more about what are you still looking for? What is something that, you're missing or you're craving, I think that you'll be really surprised by what people say. And when you have organizations that are trying to cut budget, this is a whole nother podcast. I'm going to need to maybe the next one I will record on this one. But I think when you have organizations that are so burnt out on I have to create all this content, I have to create all this content. How do I get out of this content cycle? This is how you do it. Having conversations, right? And finding out more what actually was impactful, what actually helped you on the job. And when you realize it's not really about this, all this instructional designed content, and it's about these other little things that actually supported transfer of behavior and performance back onto the job, it really helps you to shift what you see as learning or what learning could look like in your organization. So you can spend less time turning out so much content that we all know probably isn't going to be the thing that creates impact. And you can focus more on these things that probably take a lot less time, money, resources in order to create. But I think, we've got to reframe a little bit when we think about evaluation and what's the purpose of it. This year, I know we talked a lot on the podcast about, funding and not being a cost center. And that's generally what we talk about. But I think we have to start talking about evaluation in a very positive light. Evaluation is a very bad brand. And I think right now people are very burnt out on this idea of evaluation and audits and things like that. Understandably so. So, let's take a moment and reframe what we think of when we think of evaluation, and how can it be an opportunity for us to learn, to get better, and to get better data of how we can also perform better as an L&D division or department. Those individual courses will tell you a lot, but I think it's really cool if you can see how your work impacted someone's career. I think we can see these things, how someone is impacted through a single program and things like that. And there's a lot of pride there, and there's a lot of things that we should be proud of, right? We see that people are doing better because of a program. But I can tell you from experience, being able to hear from someone, how the Kirkpatrick model and, our certification programs has impacted someone's career has been some of the most, just humbling conversations that I've ever had. And when you're only auditing or evaluating a single program, right? And not, and even when you're only evaluating our portfolio of programs, but not actually the work that we do, you don't get those stories, right? And that is where the value also comes in for the business. You as a department have value. When a CFO is looking at, well, what have they done for us lately? You want to be able to tell these stories of how we've, helped folks with their careers and helped them, feel the confidence they need to, continue to grow this organization. I hope that some of the work that you do helps to retain employees, and you find out that data, right? And that is very powerful of data to have, just as, these programs that we did have led to, these behavior changes. I think there's like that. And then there's this like bigger level 4 impact that we can make on someone in our organizations. And those stories need to be told as well. So I challenge you all this year or towards this end of the year to think about, how can I do an evaluation on our department? How can we, kind of know more about like, what is our brand? What is our, what is our own level 4? What's our, what are our own results? Really, really do that higher level evaluation. And I think it'll help drive some of the things that you're going to want to do in the new year. Yes, you're always going to want to stick to the strategic plan of your organization and align the work that you do to that, right? You're going to want to align to, probably have a goal of, maybe simplifying or standardizing, right? Yes. But maybe think more like, how can we as an L&D division rebrand how we are looked at in the organization? And then how can we ensure that we are supporting retention, supporting, recruitment, and how can we as an L&D division support, or rebrand like how learning is looked at? Because sometimes you could be a really great learning department and do amazing work, but it's a battle for you because we come with past experiences from other organizations that maybe are not as amazing as your division is. And so that's like this bias that some employees will come in with that we're battling. So yeah, I think one action item for you for this episode is to put together an evaluation plan for your own department. Do a brand audit, really understand how have we impacted the organization as a whole? How have we supported people's careers, and where are there opportunities in order to maybe do some of those things more or just do them so we can have more of that data for when it's Q4 2026 and the CFO is looking at us and saying, what have you done for our organization? You don't have to just talk about the different programs that you've developed. You can talk about the actual humans that you helped to develop and and how you were able to help grow their career. So friends, thank you all for catching this episode. I cannot wait to hear more about this L&D brand audit that you do. If you have any questions or need support on the L&D brand audit, let me know because we've got some tools for you all. Otherwise, we will catch you all on the next episode. Bye.